Welcome to this special edition of the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. I'm Nikki Fiacco, the host of the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. I'm excited to share a special partnership with 250 and Beyond, Our American Story, to share a series of short stories from AmeriCorps alums about what service looks like in their communities today. These voices help amplify the spirit of service and remind us that across this country, people continue to show up for one another each and every day. So what is 250 and Beyond? 250 and Beyond, Our American Story is a national initiative dedicated to making service to others visible and valued in all its forms. By reflecting on our nation's history and elevating stories today to inspire the future, we aim to realize a vision of a nation united through service. Led by a coalition of leading service organizations, 250 and Beyond is a call to action, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and inspiring the future, helping us respect our differences and transcend our divisions. For all of those national service and AmeriCorps members out there, let's keep getting things done. I hope you enjoyed this series.
Thank you for having me on today. So my name's Libby McClayton, and I did 2 years VISTA with the Office of the Mayor in Baltimore, Maryland. And then I did 1 year with Children's Hunger Alliance in Dayton, Ohio as a state national member. I'm really looking forward to sharing about my community and service. So I live in the DC metro area in Rockville, more specifically, and I would say the biggest way that I stay engaged service-wise and turn service into action is I'm part of the AmeriCorps Alum DC Chapter. I'm on the board, and I also participate actively in the activities that we do. We do a mixture of service, professional development, as well as just social, like having fun kind of things. And I think one specific service project that we did this past Thanksgiving that I think really I took some of my AmeriCorps skills and transferred them to that opportunity was we did an opportunity in DC at the University of District of Columbia with Project Give Back. We were packing boxes for folks over Thanksgiving, and it was great. Lots and lots of thousands and thousands of boxes were made, but it was the first time they had been at the venue. They're usually at the Armory, but because the National Guard was there, they had to shift gears to a smaller space. Since it was their first year doing that, they had all the logistics of changing and everything. What I really liked was that all the volunteers, they're both from AmeriCorps Alum DC, and they had volunteers all over the DC area, different high schools, different Girl Scout, Boy Scout troops, things like that. But everybody was just like going with the flow, which is definitely something that I learned to do in AmeriCorps, right? Because not everything goes as planned, and you have to pivot and do a bunch of stuff. So that was an event that I really think I drawn from my AmeriCorps getting things done attitude, as well as just being able to like go with the flow. Definitely was utilized a lot there. And then I think looking back at my service year, it reminded me I actually ran one of my first events when I was a VISTA was I did a Thanksgiving food drive. I was at a recovery center in Baltimore. There was definitely a stigma. There still is a stigma against people in recovery. So at first it was hard to get people involved. But I think I reached out to hospitals and I was able to they donated like a bunch of pies, a bunch of food and a bunch of items for the food drive. And it just was a really great experience because that was my first real job kind of thing. And so that was my first real project in my real job. So it gave me that hands-on experience and connected me back to Thanksgiving, the holiday between the story I shared first and this story. So yeah, it definitely has that tie back there.
Sorry to interrupt, but I too down on the through line that you had mentioned where you had said currently, and one of the things that I want to highlight in this series is that after your service year, you can take your experience and you can build on it. And you built on it not only by participating in the DC alumni chapter, but also helping to support the project in DC last year that helped put together food packages. When we think about national service and how it's just carried through. We're like, oh, we know how to do that. And I think that's a great representation of how you can get involved in your community. You had mentioned you're with the DC chapter of AmeriCorps alums, the folks that are in the DMV area, and you're just right on the outskirts. And that is a great connector of how you were able to pull your service year through to continue to not only just you as an individual to participate and volunteer in your community, but to galvanize others to come together. So I wanted to point that out, that you're giving a great example of that through line of service and that getting things done attitude.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, like tying the food back to in Ohio. I also did more food stuff. So that's exactly, yeah, something that I'm very passionate about, just making sure people have enough to eat, definitely.
Going forward, thinking through maybe at this moment where we are in time of service and community coming together and communities not coming together, what would you say what were some of your takeaways on a personal level from not just your interaction with the DC chapter's volunteer experience, but maybe throughout all of your experience of doing community engagement or volunteerism throughout the years? And also, I'm going to throw this in there, and folks, I didn't prepare her for this, but also what you do on a regular basis of service learning with students. You on spot there.
Yeah, so I think now that I work with students, it's like getting that next generation involved in service, whether that's maybe they want to do AmeriCorps next, right? But maybe they want to do public service. That's definitely something that I'm trying to encourage my students to have, this like just a service mindset, which I think a lot of people, they want to see their communities do better, right? I just think that's something that people want, right? They want to live somewhere that is vibrant, that has everything. Everyone has everything they need. And it would be great if one day all these nonprofits that exist don't have to exist, but they do. So we should support them while they're here. And one of the things I think I really learned during my AmeriCorps service was, I think sometimes you want to jump in the work and you want to do what you think is right for whatever organization or you're serving with, whether it's like you learn something in school and you want to apply it. But I think the best thing to do is really just listen to the communities, because you want to work alongside the communities rather than try to tell them what to do, because the communities and the community leaders and even the nonprofit leaders are experts more in that community that they're serving than someone who's more of an outsider. And that's not to say that all your ideas aren't going to work, but I started out my VISTA term doing needs assessment to see what the center needed, because I did community outreach and things. And that's when I realized that they wanted to bring people together, and we did a center-wide talent show to showcase skills. And we actually recruited some NCCC members as volunteers there. So that was fun too. So I got community from another branch of AmeriCorps. And the other thing, I know I'm going in all three different storylines here, but I do think that service, it does bring communities that are different together, as well as people who are similar. I think when people are uniting for a common goal, you're bonding, you're trying to get that done. You're putting aside your differences and getting stuff done. And you also, you learn about other people's perspectives, other people's backgrounds. And then, what you can do, you can always learn from someone. And if you make a mistake, right, you just apologize and tell your perspective and keep moving. And so I think those are my three kind of tidbits from your question.
That makes so much sense. And I love how you brought in the ability to, I like to call it, fail flamboyantly in service, just because you're in a group of people who you're there to serve. And so it is a forgiving environment of, sorry, I didn't know that was something that we shouldn't be speaking in that way or addressing in that way. It's more of a call in than a call out. And I think more than ever, we need a more call in than a call out sort of society. Libby, this has been so great. And I love how you brought in some of your other experiences as far as what you're doing on campus and then what you're doing as an alum. When somebody goes into a volunteer experience, just from your perspective, what What do you think the best mindset might be as far as coming to a community? And you mentioned it, not coming in with preconceived, I'm going to fix this notions, but would you say it's more of a curiosity and a humility, or what? I don't know. What, from your perspective, how do you think people should be walking into communities that maybe they aren't necessarily super part of, but they want to support?
Yeah, I definitely think like the curiosity, like willingness to learn and listening and active listening, right? Because sometimes
Hmm.
people listen, but only to say what they're going to say
Hmm.
anyway. So
Oh,
people
yeah.
listening, but like that active listening piece is very important. And just knowing that you don't know everything and you're not a superhero. Even if you did know everything, it's not your job to swoop in and save people that didn't ask to be saved in the first place. So I think that's also a big thing. Is just getting rid of that superhero cape and starting to frame the community like I was saying before.
That makes so much sense. And spoken from a true professional. So before we land this plane, I want to make sure that if there's any messages you mentioned the DC alums group, and they're a very strong alumni group and very active. Folks are listening to this from all over the country and maybe outside the continental United States. But do you want to speak a little bit to the AmeriCorps Alumni Association I'm sorry, alumni chapter, not association, chapter in DC, and maybe highlight a few of your ongoing programs?
Sure. So we're are actually, I think we're the only 501(c). We just got our nonprofit status a couple years ago. That's great. We do different events, like I was saying in the beginning, social, professional, as well as service. Upcoming this Saturday, we're going to the zoo, so that'll be a fun social event. We've done different like professional development workshops, like resume, Myers-Briggs test workshop. And then service wise, like I mentioned before, we went to Project Give Back. We try to hit all the different DMV states. So we've been to things in Arlington before, the Eco Action Group, and Wreath Across America were a couple things. We went up to Rockville. We've been to So What Else? A bunch of different, we try to hit all the different areas. And it's really fun and it's a good way to connect with service-minded people. I think a lot of people for work, they're transplants and they end up in DC. So you don't have to, you can have done your service anywhere in the US and then find us. And I think it's good to have that home away, I guess, away from home kind of thing. And there are some people who are from DC, native to DC and served in DC. But I think there's definitely like a wide, because it's DC area, there's a wide range of folks. And yeah, it's just really good way to make connections and build contacts too.
That's amazing. I love that you're still involved with them too so much after your service. So Libby, this was so wonderful. And folks, if you want to hear all of Libby's story, I should have looked it up, but your episode something, and I will find it and I will put it in the show notes, where we had a full discussion with Libby and her service year. For now, though, this is about 2050 and beyond. What does community service look like and volunteerism look like in your community? And I'm so glad that I can bring national service alums onto the platform to highlight this. Thank you so much for your partnership. 250 and beyond, we love you. And yeah, service will heal us, service will save us, whatever it might be. That's what we're all into. So Libby, thank you so much for participating.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nikki.
Of course. Until next time, we'll see you next time.